Hello, and welcome to our channel where we explore the world of Odoo. This is the fourth video in our series on creating node-based user interfaces for Odoo. In this video, we'll be creating a basic app which shows how a typical node-based user interface looks like. To be specific, we'll be creating an app which demonstrates the basic aspects we've discussed in the previous videos on the series. Creating several types of graphical elements, or in other words, the node types. Selecting and removing a node. Creating connections between two nodes. While the previous videos focused on each of these aspects, today we'll be creating an app which combines those aspects, resulting in a basic demonstration of how they integrate and interact. Let's discuss the layout first. As shown on your screen, we'll be using a familiar layout. An area containing node types on the left side, the work area on the right side, and an area for commands on the top side. I'm sure you're all familiar with this layout, so I won't discuss it any further. Here's how we'll implement it. Firstly, since we're creating it for Odoo, we'll be using the Odoo web library and framework. This will provide us with a solid foundation to build our app on top of. Secondly, we'll separate the data of the graphical elements from their OWL components into their own models. In other words, we'll create an OWL component and a model for each graphical element. This time, we're going to model elements analogous to drawing pages. The work area is a document page or document for short, while the elements are drawing objects, etc. Therefore, we'll have three main components: document, node, and connection, and three main models for each components. We'll also add several supporting components and models. Port. This will be used to create connections between nodes. We'll manage node connections with ports by separating incoming connections and outgoing connections using input ports and output ports. Path. This will be used to implement multiple paths for the connections, allowing users to manage nodes and connections more effectively. Waypoint. This will be used to support the multiple paths feature. To host and to provide access to these components, we'll also create two more components. Node UI component. This will contain the documents and act as the root component of our app. Node menu component. This will allow users to add nodes to the document, serving as a building block for the left side area of the layout. Now that we have an idea of what our app will look like, let's jump into the code. We'll start by creating the manifest file and directory structure first. Since this is all in JavaScript, we only need to create a menu pointing to a client action which will display the Node UI component. We'll also be using the external library FileSaver.js to allow saving the document as a JSON file. Please find the link for this library in the video description. Before we continue, if you're new to OWL and Odoo's JavaScript framework, please watch my videos on these topics first so you can understand this better. Also, I'd like to mention that I won't be explaining every detail of the code, but rather providing a general overview of it. Don't worry, the codes are all basic and nothing complicated. Let's start with the models. As mentioned earlier, the document is analogous to a drawing page, so we'll implement the document model to contain nodes and connections. We'll also use the document to keep track of elements selected by the user and new connections being created. If you haven't watched the previous videos in this series yet, please visit my channel as all the techniques used here are based on the subject explained in those videos. As shown on your screen, we've created methods to support operations on the document model such as adding and removing nodes, adding and removing connections, etc. For the nodes, it's similar with the document model. The node model manages elements inside it, in this case, ports. We'll also add methods to move nodes, which will also move corresponding connections to the node. The same applies for the port model. We'll provide methods to manage connections. For the port model, connections are named as links to simplify the serializing process when saving and loading the document. Similar techniques are applied to the connection model. We'll manage paths and waypoints with the connection model. The path model is responsible for generating paths for SVG elements, which results with the connection drawing styles discussed in previous videos. As for the waypoint model, it simply stores its own position and corresponding paths. Since we've done with the models, let's focus on user interactions. We'll start with the node menu component first. This component is a special kind of menu item that can be dragged and dropped to the document component. As the node menu is dropped, the associated node component is added to the document component. Next, the Node UI component. This acts as the root and entry point for our app. The Node UI component hosts Node menu items and buttons to interact with the document component, such as deleting elements, opening documents, etc., and the document component itself. All interactions related to the document are passed to the active document component, which in turn will call the related document model instance. For example, when deleting selected elements, the Node UI component sends a message via the event bus, which is picked up by the document component that then calls the document model instance's delete selected method. As shown on your screen, the document component listens to all kinds of messages related to interactions with the document model. Similarly, the document component hosts the node component and connection component, and so on. In other words, the relationship between components mirrors the relationship between models. To simplify our codes, to handle the dragging operation of the nodes, we use Odoo's own use draggable hook instead of managing the process ourselves, unlike the previous video. This is handled by the node component. We'll also delegate the trigger to create new connections to the port component. The process of creating new connections only triggers when the user pushes the left button of the mouse while the cursor is on the port component, not on the node component, specifically on the output port. And the new connection can only be finished when the user finishes it on the input port of another node. Please notice that the port component only triggers the process and completion. The process itself is handled by the document model via the document component. To display the connections between the node, we create connection component, path component, and the waypoint component, which will use data from the connection model along with the path model and the waypoint model. Lastly, to implement saving the document to an external file, we'll use JSON format. We only need to stringify the document instance. To implement loading from an external file, we'll parse the JSON from the file and simply recreate everything based on the JSON file. And that's it. We've created a simple app with a node-based user interface. While this app really does nothing, it demonstrates how a node-based user interface can be made purely based on OWL for Odoo. In my next video, we'll explore how to create an AI agent builder app based on the techniques discussed in this video. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and share it with others who might benefit from this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date on all my experiments and tutorials. We'll see you in the next video.